When you're making a conscious decision to make a stand against the despair, does that help give you a sense of agency?
Yes. Yes, that's so much it. That's so much it. I think that's why mutual aid or volunteering in some form is so essential to your mental health, especially in this moment. Because what I was saying, we feel an excess of despair, of anxiety, of helplessness. And it does give you agency back again to say, this is what I can do. I used to work in customer service, and all the time they'd be like, don't tell the customer no, tell them what you can do. And that it works though. And it works on yourself too, to say, I can't change what decision my elected official is making right now. So what can I do right now that is going to be a net positive?
Victoria.
Hello, Chris. How are you?
I am so great. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me. I really appreciate it.
How did you get started serving food to people in South Philadelphia?
Yeah, so thinking back, it was in the autumn of 2020, and what was going on, we were obviously really in the height of the COVID pandemic. There wasn't a lot that people knew. We didn't have vaccines, and my husband and I had been really heavily involved with 𝐏𝐢𝐜, that's the Hebrew Immigrant Aid Society. We were volunteering with refugees there, and all that in-person volunteering was just shut down because of COVID. And I was looking for a place that I could give back and put into community, because that was like a hole in my life at that time. And on Instagram, I just saw through the algorithm somehow, I saw that South Philadelphia Community Fridge was this new thing in the neighborhood, and they were really looking for people who had cars to help volunteer. I was like, oh, well, I have a car, like it's just sitting there. What can I do? How can I use this to help? And so I started volunteering. I fell in love with it. I fell in love with the people. I fell in love with doing mutual aid. Fell in love more with my neighborhood in South Philadelphia.
What was it that inspired you and your husband to be so service and volunteer oriented?
I mean, just in terms of life, I think my husband would say it comes from his religious background in Judaism. We started out volunteering with 𝐏𝐢𝐜. For me personally, there's the religious background. There's my upbringing, which was always people being involved in volunteering, and kind of that idea that volunteering or being of service to others, it's not really an option. It's part of being a human being. That's something that I think I really get from my grandmother. For her, volunteering or serving others, it was like breathing. It wasn't something you think about. It's just something you do. So when we were in that period in 2020, without those volunteer opportunities, I hated it. And so this especially was exciting to me, because at the time I was still working a 9-to-5 from home. And I was like, what can I do around those hours where I can have this be, a big part of my life? It fits my schedule. I have the opportunity to make a real impact directly with people.
What is it that builds that habitual desire to serve in such a way that you couldn't imagine not serving, and it leaves a hole when you stop?
Yeah, I just think that's what makes me really happy. For me personally, is to have that connection with another person. And I think one of the best ways you get that connection is either by being of service to somebody or by serving with them. And that's also a key part of what we do at South Philadelphia Community Fridge. We talk about mutual aid. We talk about reciprocity. So it's not just I'm serving you, I'm giving, you're taking. It's I'm bringing food and, you're in community with me. We have a relationship now. This is a back and forth where we're giving each other friendship and companionship as well.
How much of the service is offering relationships to those who might not have strong relationships?
Yeah, so I would say in terms of relationships, we do a lot of relationship building within South Philadelphia Community Fridge, within our volunteer base. So we've all become very, very close, and there's a lot of opportunities to become really close with your fellow volunteers, because you're in these situations, you're working very closely together, and we do things where we'll have one person goes and picks up food, and then another person meets them and they help them drop the food off. We do parties, and then we socialize outside of just volunteering. And then also, talking about just the people we might meet at the fridge who might not necessarily be signed up as formal volunteers. It's a really important opportunity to engage with people, to talk up to them about what foods they like, to get to know them, and create a relationship or a paradigm where it's not just like we are the service provider, we are the service giver, and you are the service taker, but rather like we're all friends here and like we're bringing food to our neighborhood because we love our neighbors and we want everybody to have food.
What sets South Philly Community Fridge apart from other fridges or food banks in the area?
Yeah, I mean, obviously geography, right? There's a couple different community fridges in Philadelphia. So, of course, we're down in South Philly. We have Germantown Community Fridge, East Falls. They're doing something in the Northeast right now. We had a community fridge in West Philly. That's currently under hiatus. We've got one up in Mount Airy. South Philly Community Fridge, we have a lot of locations. So we currently have 7 locations, which is really exciting. And that's South Philadelphia is a broader geographic area than some of those other neighborhoods. And so we have a larger pool of volunteers to pull from, which lends itself to then being able to support more fridges. What separates us from more of your formal food banks? So a lot of it is we, as a mutual aid organization, as people who are doing something that's a little more informal, we have the ability, like I said, to build those relationships where you can be a volunteer and somebody who takes food. We're not creating barriers, again, between I am a service provider and you are a service recipient. This is mutual. The people who come and volunteer, and then when they finish volunteering, they finish cleaning the fridge, they finish helping unload, they'll, stock up on what they want and they'll take that home with them. Or we'll have people who get food from those bigger food banks and they get their box and, they take what they don't want out of their box and they put it in the fridge. And then maybe someone else came by and put some stuff from their box in and they'll, get to kind of exchange. So really our model is different from your traditional food bank in a number of ways, but just thinking about the big things, it's from a mutual aid point of view. So we're not creating barriers between people serving and people being served. It's all a community.
How does an abundance mindset inspire peace in one's own heart?
Yeah, so an abundance mindset inspiring peace in your heart. Love that. So abundance, I said, is, my greatest core value or something that's so important to me when it comes to the community fridge. It's something we talk about all the time, living in abundance. You're saying abundance and peace in your heart. So when we talk about abundance, what we're saying is there is enough for all of us. And so while we do have these challenges, scarcity, people not having enough food or not enough money, like these are sort of things that are artificial conditions that have been imposed upon us. But what we think about when we are talking about abundance is we know there's free food out there. There's so much excess food that we have access to. And we're, we're taking our volunteers and we're going out to get that excess food. Abundance when it comes to volunteers. We know there are so many people in South Philadelphia who want to help. We have an abundance of volunteers. We have an abundance of love. We have an abundance of community. And also just the idea with abundance is that me having something isn't taking something from you. So even though we worry about food scarcity and kind of a scarcity mindset, something that we might see is, we're bringing excess food and people can feel scared to take it, or they can feel like maybe I should save this for someone who needs it more than me, or maybe there's not enough to go around. And the idea is, we are trying to promote this mindset of like there is an abundance and it's here for you and we're here to share, and we don't need to compete for resources. So when we talk about with other mutual aid organizations or other nonprofits we work with, we're always resource sharing. We're always saying like, hey, maybe we don't have somebody to pick up this food this week. Does another organization want it? Or hey, we're applying for this grant. Do you also want to apply for this grant? And the idea that this is not about us continuing to get stuff, but rather it's about like sharing what we have.
I love the concept of abundance. I think it builds, courage and confidence and a sense of safety. You feel safe when you have enough. But I don't think I've heard that phrase before. Abundance is there's enough for everyone. You've kind of created this this culture that we all are going to support each of us to all have enough. Can you tell me a little bit more about how the community as a whole, all being in on it, kind of supports that feeling of abundance?
Yeah, absolutely. Because we know practically, like, the reason the fridge exists, the reason food banks exist is because we have had these like artificial scarcities enforced on us where people can't afford food because it's too expensive or people don't have their benefits or things like that. So how we're supporting like real abundance within our communities is by reaching out, by making efforts to find where is the excess food, how can we get it, where are our volunteers. We know that we have what we need and that we are what we need. It's just a matter of like harnessing that. And so activating that by forming relationships with each other and by saying, we know there is enough, we just have to work. We're working together to access that. We're working together to bring that to our neighbors.
Do you feel that service to the needy should be something handled by the state or handled by people like yourself and all of us?
Yeah, that's a really tricky question. I think it's a balance. We're in currently a political moment where like a lot of services have been cut and continue to be cut, and people like myself and our huge volunteer base at South Philadelphia Community Fridge are like doing everything we can to plug the gaps, right? And it's kind of like you have your house is on fire and you're trying to put it out with a big gulp from 7-Eleven. So I do think there is a really big role that the state should be playing. That's my personal opinion. This isn't necessarily like an opinion from the fridge. We're an apolitical organization, but I would say, there is a role that people are paying taxes. What are our taxes going to? We're supporting more like military expenses and tax breaks for corporations and things like that. But then you talk about the people that are actually building this country, the people that live here, like, who does the state serve? What is the role of the state? These are all very big political science, philosophical questions. But to kind of get it down, yes, the state should be offering services. They should be offering more services, but also we have an individual responsibility to our neighbors. And, there's a horrible thing you might have seen, like maybe people say it on the internet or like it's apocryphal or whatever. It's like, why would I donate to charity? Because I pay taxes. You hear people say that. But that's, just because the state is never going to be able to meet everybody where they're at. And I mean, a lot of what we're doing with the fridge too is meeting people who are falling through the cracks, people who are undocumented workers, people with limited language skills, people who are, for whatever reason, scared to access or don't have access to state services. So in a really, in a utopian sort of situation, you're going to have the state, but then there's always the need for individuals to step in. And to get on that a little further, I was in Iceland a couple years ago, and I don't know a lot about Iceland politically, but I know they do have a stronger safety net than what we have in the United States. And there are still community fridges in Iceland. They're more focused on the sustainability and preventing food waste and building community aspect rather than hunger relief. But yeah, there's always going to be a need for this.
That's beautiful. Wow. We always, I feel like every time I have a political conversation about policy and service, somebody brings up Scandinavia. It's like the one that pops over because they've cracked the code. But no, it's imperative for us to serve for our own health.
Yes.
It's good for you to serve.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I think culturally, there has been kind of a just general, and not anything like you can look at in like a book or whatever. As you see Instagram, there is a big movement towards like the self, and self-care is incredible and it's important and it's necessary, but talking a lot about like how we can improve our lives by moving inward. And I think it's really important to improve your life by moving outwards. struggled with anxiety and depression a lot through my life. And I feel like the happiest I have ever been in my life is working with the community fridge. Very specifically, it can be really all consuming. It can be a lot of stress. It can be a lot of anxiety, but it's just like, it's all for a purpose. And I think when I, hear people, especially in this moment, we talked about politics, we're suffering with anxiety and dread and feeling helpless and feeling like I can't, like I'm powerless. And it's really tempting to give into that feeling and just to be like, well, there's nothing I can do about this. So I'm going to, get into like doing skincare, and I'm gonna, get really into like my own personal hobbies and try to like build this wall around myself so I can't get hurt. And you can't do that. It's imperative to reach out beyond ourselves and say, going back to that Jewish wisdom, like I can't solve this, but I have to do something. And I think I was very lucky. About a year ago, my husband and I were invited to speak on stage at a punk concert for a band called Destroy Boys that I really love. And it was right after the election. And when I got up there and I said, like, it's very tempting to give in to despair. It's very tempting to give in to hopelessness and to retreat inside yourself. But like the cure is community, and like you have to reach out and you have to be uncomfortable sometimes. And if you can't change the world, you can be the reason somebody gets to eat.
I think I recently came to the conclusion for myself that the best way I can serve the world is to take care of my own heart, take care of myself.
Yeah.
Which I do by serving the world.
Yeah. And I feel like it's important not to just like to crap on self-care and be like, oh, people with all their moisturizer or whatever, but just rather it is important to think about, like, when I want to improve myself, there is that place for rest. There's a place for self-care. There's a place for pampering yourself when you need it. But also you do not contain the world, and you are not going to find all the answers by working on yourself.
Is there an interlink between service and gratitude?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, gratitude, major value. So gratitude is just this idea. We talk a lot at the community fridge. We talk about abundance. We talk about living in gratitude. And what does it mean to live in gratitude? It means kind of like taking a force towards optimism, saying when we get this food that's donated to us that, we're grateful to receive this. We're grateful to give it. We are choosing to look at life, to look at the world, to look at our neighbors and say, like, I'm thankful for you. I'm glad you're here. I'm grateful for everything that we've been given. And we know, of course, again, there's so much balance with this that we're talking about. There's so much scarcity in the world. And there's a lot that we feel has almost been like taken away maybe from us or taken away from our communities. But living in gratitude, we're choosing to celebrate what we've been given and celebrate, the people that make it possible.
Do you think that discovering one's peace in your own heart is more so finding joy and happiness and things that are fun or pleasurable or service, whatever, or finding the things that are disconcerting, that are discordant, that are unpleasant, that are chaos, and antidoting those, keeping those from your heart?
It's the same thing. It's the exact same thing for me anyway, because you have to, like, the joy is found in like the resistance to the despair. There's joy and there's happiness and there's peace and there's content in seeing that there's hunger in your community, seeing that there's despair in your community, and understanding that like you are making a choice and a stand to fight against that, to do what you can against that. So it's both. They're two sides of the same coin.
When you're making a conscious decision to make a stand against the despair, does that help give you a sense of agency?
Yes, that's so much it. I think that's why mutual aid or volunteering in some form is so essential to your mental health, especially in this moment. Because what I was saying, we feel an excess of despair, of anxiety, of helplessness. And it does give you agency back again to say, this is what I can do. I used to work in customer service, and all the time they'd be like, don't tell the customer no, tell them what you can do. And that it works though. And it works on yourself too, to say, I can't change what decision my elected official is making right now. And I'm sending them letters, and I'm texting them, and I'm, knocking on doors, and it feels hopeless. It feels like they've made up their mind. So what can I do right now that is going to be a net positive? And for me, that's getting up and driving up to Germantown and picking up a bunch of excess food and then bringing it to my neighbors, because, they need the food, and the food's otherwise going to be wasted, and meeting my neighbors and talking to them and figuring out what their needs are, and, connecting them with resources if I know it, or just continuing to have those positive connections. And that's not an antidote for all of the, things that I'm despairing about, but it is, I know that I've done my part. I'm doing what I can do.
If we took aside giving the food to those in need for a second, given all the wonderful technological advances we have with food production and antibiotics for animals and stuff, what is the value in saving or repurposing food that would otherwise go to waste just in itself?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So there's two. Obviously, there's the main thing that we're talking about, which is hunger relief, which is there's a lot of excess food produced in this country. There's also a lot of people in this country that go hungry or experience food scarcity. So at that point, it's just kind of a supply chain thing where it's like, all right, we're losing, I think it's 40% of all the food in this country ends up getting wasted. So if we can recapture even a little bit of that, we're solving a problem with a solution. Like, we don't have to make anything new. We're not producing, it's not like we don't have enough food. It's not like we have to produce more food to fight hunger. So that's just it's like math, it's like logistics, whatever. And then there's the environmental component, which is that rotting food produces methane. It's not good for the environment. And also rotting food, you add it to the waste system. What happens? You have to put it in a dumpster. The dumpster goes in a truck. The truck goes out to Long Island. They put it on a barge. They send it off to sea. I don't know. But anything where you have food that's going to waste, it's not good for the environment. It's not good for people. And it's not good to just keep creating something that gets wasted. So something we're very fortunate in Philadelphia is we do have that big produce market down by the airport where we get a lot of food in. And we've worked very closely with Sharing Excess, which is an organization that has really harnessed that produce market to go in and get the stuff that's going to be wasted there. Maybe it doesn't look great. Maybe it doesn't have a buyer, whatever. And then that ends up getting distributed through this ecosystem of community fridges and shelters and food banks. And that's been really key to what we do.
As you're trying to build a community with everyone feeling like they're a part of something, how does leadership play a role at South Philadelphia Community Fridge, and what does horizontal leadership mean to you?
Yeah, we practice horizontal leadership at South Philadelphia Community Fridge. So what that means is that everyone is important, and we're not creating a structure where people are in charge or where one person has a level of authority where what they says goes. So we make decisions. We strive to always make decisions by consensus. Practically, 100% consensus is not always possible. So when we make decisions about how we're going to spend large amounts of money, or we make decisions about programming, things like that, putting up a new fridge, we'll discuss it. We use Slack, so we'll discuss it in our Slack. We might call a meeting face to face, and then we'll take a vote on it. And while we're talking in Slack, we always strive to make adjustments so we can try to get to a place where everyone feels good about it. Ultimately, we make decisions with an 80% majority. Is how we've done that. And so when we talk about horizontal leadership as well, we also want to create a paradigm or create a system where everyone is empowered to have ideas, to come up with things. So it's not like one person's in charge and they're like, this is what we're doing this month or whatever. So we have people who will individually go out of their way to reach out to different large food companies and ask for donations, or people will plan events on their own. People will just come to the group and say, I want to do this thing. Here's why I think it's going to be good for the fridge. Can we spend some money on this? And then we work together to say yes. For practicality's sake, we have some people who are more involved with things like the finances and answering the email and looking at our social media and things like that. But we're open for anyone to be involved in that as they see fit. And I think that's really important as a mutual aid organization, to have that horizontal leadership structure, because it's key to what we do. We're all equals. And that goes back to the thing I talked about earlier. We're not service providers and people being served, and we're not like leaders and people being led. It's a horizontal structure.
I've engaged with a lot of nonprofits and businesses that have, the tyrannical, draconian leader that just plows through staff. They do have a vision, and they're type A and they get stuff done, but everyone's just miserable. But then I've been a part of the nonprofit or the business where everyone's idea is being heard, and it is just a gelatinous mess of nothing getting done and people talking and ideas boards, Slack boards everywhere, but nothing really gets done. What's the balance? How do you have this horizontal leadership where everyone's ideas are being heard, but also things are getting done and there's a decisive direction?
Yeah, so I've also been in situations that are gelatinous where like everybody has an idea, but nobody's going for it. And I think what you really need for horizontal leadership to succeed is you need like a culture where there is permission to do things, because I think people get stuck and they just really want to know, like, this is actually okay. Like, I can actually do this and that's going to be fine. And like, no one's going to get mad at me, or, like if there are repercussions or whatever. So I think that's a big part of it, is just like creating by the way we talk to each other and the way we've behaved in the past and how we'll continue to behave in the future, is saying like, yes, if you have an idea, go for it, bring it to the group and then do it. And it's really important just to continue showing examples of that. And for people who have done it in the past, as they're able to continue being involved with those ideas. But I do think, where you get stuck when you're talking about horizontal leadership and anyone can do anything, is people still might not feel like they can do it. And so just try to take initiative and say, well, I want to plan a fundraiser. Are there 3 or 4 people who can help me? Great. Okay, this is how much I want to spend on the fundraiser. Does everyone agree with that? Yes or no? Do we need to adjust? But really, it's just you have to create a culture where people feel comfortable. Pulling the trigger is a violent term. Peeling the apple? I don't know. People feel comfortable going for it. So we definitely have guidelines about like, this is the amount of money where we need to have like, so this amount of money, we can kind of get like an informal, that sounds good. And like once we're reaching like a certain percentage of our budget or whatever, we need to like sit down and give it a couple days and take a vote on it. But it is important not to stagnate, and it's important for that people feel like I have permission to move forward.
I believe if you hang out with 5 smokers, you'll be the 6th. So it's interesting that you say lead by example, and if you have some folks that are maybe they're fearful or scared to move forward on an idea they have, but they watch you come up with an idea and then just go for it, that kind of breeds this culture of like a fast-moving, gelatinous, whatever. It's moving.
Yeah, that's what you want. Yeah. That's what you want. I mean, we're, again, horizontal, but you want movement. And I mean, I think what we've been able to do over the years, does kind of speak for that we've had, 5 years as a mutual aid organization, which is really incredible. All volunteers. No one's getting paid to do this. We're just doing it because we love it. And, we've got 7 locations right now. We do events. So we just had our 5th anniversary party. We do raffles, we do little fall festivals, spring festivals, stuff like that. And so that just kind of speaks to the fact that like we have a really good crew of people who just really want to do this.
Why do people say no to opportunities that show up at their door?
Yeah, people say no. Saying yes is a big thing for me. So people say no, they're scared. People say no because they're scared. And being afraid or being fearful doesn't even need to be like the traditional, like, you know, when we say someone's afraid, that has a sort of connotation of like they're like cowering or something. But being afraid doesn't just mean like, oh my gosh, I'm so scared. It's like, you know, people are afraid of feeling rejected, like they're going to join a group and they're not going to fit in. People are afraid of like changing their lifestyle or having to make changes to the way they've been doing things. And people are afraid that something could go wrong. Which, I mean, I'm a very anxious person, so I get the being afraid something could go wrong somewhere. How is this going to happen? And so I've really had to like tamp that down in myself through like therapy and talking to friends and being in community. Just the idea of like something's going to go wrong. Like we're going to open up a new fridge and everyone's going to hate it or something like that. You know, we're going to have bad interactions with the neighbors. And one thing that's been very important for me and really enabled me to get over some of that fear is just being a flexible organization and understanding that if things don't work out, then we'll stop doing it that way. So we've had those conversations. We've closed a bunch of fridges. We have 7 locations right now. We've shut down at least 5. And that doesn't mean over the years, we've shut down at least 5. And that doesn't mean that we failed. It means that we tried to put up a fridge somewhere and we found out that it wasn't working on that block, in that neighborhood, in that specific circumstance. And that's okay. And that's really important to me, is just you can say yes to things and you can try things, because if it doesn't work out, that's part of the process. It's okay. You don't need to be scared of that. If we put up a fridge and we're getting, you know, we're having a lot of trouble with the neighbors, we're having trouble with the host, it's becoming a net negative for the community instead of a net positive. All right, we'll take it down because we know we have fridges elsewhere that are working that people can go to, and that's okay. That's part of the process.
I think so many businesses that I've interacted with or nonprofits, there will be a person who really wants something and they try and they try to achieve that. And then when it doesn't work, they say, oh, it's not working, like I give up. Not understanding that it's a part of the process, that there are quite a number of circumstances and factors that probably played into the failure of that execution, but not of the whole idea as a whole.
Yeah. And it's just not every block is the right block for a fridge, or not every day is the right day for an event, or not every donor is going to be a relationship that lasts forever. And that's okay. And so I think in order to be going out and saying, yes, I'm going to do this. Yes, I'm going to try this. Yes, I am, you know, opening myself and expanding myself to doing new things, you have to have that secure base where you have these good relationships, you know everybody is coming at something with the best intentions in mind, and we're saying we're going to say yes to this now, and if it doesn't work out later, that's okay.
Do you think that there could be an indirect correlation between one's desire to control, to keep, and to hold on to things, not willing to let go, and a pushback from saying yes to things?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. So I think people are kind of holding on to like maybe the patterns they're in, or like the way their life is set up now. And so it can be hard to think like, do I want to open up my life to like a change in schedule, a change in experience, to meeting all these new people? Do I want to open up my life to the possibility that not all of these experiences may be positive? Because you do run into things at the community fridge where you might experience the really sad side of food scarcity, where people might argue over food in front of you. You might come to a fridge and it could be a huge mess and you got to clean it up. You know, it might be a really hot day and you're lugging around 500 pounds of tomatoes in your Honda Fit and you're like, what am I doing this for exactly? The last one has happened to me. And so you do have to let go of that and accept that, this is going to be a net positive for your life, but like it's not. Being in community can be messy, it can be tricky, there's conflict, there's always conflict, and trusting that like if you have the best intentions and you're doing things with your neighbors in mind, that it's going to work out for you and you can let go of those fears and those anxieties.
I think there's a huge linkage between saying yes and surrender and control. In fact, my second core value has them wrapped up together: surrender, control, and walk through open doors. They are actually interlinked.
Yeah, and I am a person like in my daily life, I have a lot of anxiety. I'm still working on that with my therapist. And so the fridge, doing stuff with South Philadelphia Community Fridge, it's exposure therapy in a lot of ways, because even though, again, we're a horizontally led organization, I am not in charge. I've been around for a long time, and it's really, I feel very invested personally and emotionally in the organization being successful. Say there are 7 locations and there is one of you, and you cannot be at all of them at all times, and they will get messy sometimes, and someone who's is going to have to go and clean them, and people will have arguments about food, and it's going to be awful and really sad. And, you can't control that. You just have to keep doing what is good. Yeah, that's difficult. And it's really important. It's really important to surrender control like that.
The exposure therapy is so real. I think, one exercise for chronically single guys won't be, it's like, okay, your assignment this weekend is to get 10 rejections from girls. Go ask 10 girls if you can give them your number and get rejected 10 times. Not to build your confidence, not to get a date out of it, but to train yourself that it's okay to get rejected.
Yes. Yeah, definitely. In like some of my worst personal moments, I've wondered if I'm like struggling with rejection sensitivity dysphoria or something like that. And so in my personal life, and so doing this sort of practice is so important, just to understand that like bad things will happen, unfortunately. And all we can do is, we turn to our community. And that's why it's so important that we have this incredible group of volunteers, because we know none of us are alone at this, and we can, all collaborate to find solutions, and that if something goes wrong, it's not just on one person. We're a collective, and we're going to work together to make it right.
For some of the folks who might be discovering themselves kind of rotting away at home, kind of on the social media, doom scrolling, isolated, alone, sad, depressed, but too scared to kind of even get out of bed, let alone get out the door. What might you say to encourage a person who might be feeling that way to check out a place like South Philadelphia Community Fridge, to join the community there?
Yeah, I would say like you're going to get out of it what you put into it. And if you're at a place, in your life, where you feel isolated, where you feel powerless, you can really take some of that back. You can make a huge difference in the lives of your neighbors, and it's not even that hard, and it really doesn't ask that much of you. It's just to get out, go clean a fridge, pick up food from a donor. We have funds for people to go grocery shopping, so people can go grocery shopping and then submit their receipt to the fridge and stock the food in the fridges. Like so many different opportunities to volunteer. And what we really do is kind of choose your own adventure, where people can be as involved as much or as little as they want, whether someone wants to really like go full force at this and they want to like be driving food donations every week, and they want to be all over the Slack, they want to be talking to people, and they want to be meeting people. Or if someone's in a place right now where it's more comfortable, like I want to clean a fridge once a week, like all of that all works, and it's all super helpful. But I think that really taking the time to get involved in your community, even when it's uncomfortable at first, it just pays dividends in like every possible way. My life has been so enriched by the community fridge. So I've talked a little bit about my husband. We were just dating when we started volunteering together. Since then, been engaged and married, and at our wedding, we were very fortunate to be able to have a nice, have a more sizable wedding, and so we had 2 tables of people who we volunteer with, who, you know, because like those are like our best friends. Like we've really like we're bonded with these people, and if you want to build relationships, you want to make friendships, like there's uncertainty with meeting new people. And it's like, well, if somebody, you know, spends their free time volunteering at a community fridge, like you've done some of the pre-work on like, are you cool? Like, are you chill? Are you going to be nice to me?
You're already 90% of the core values are going to be shared.
Exactly. Like you're going to meet people that you really align with. And of course, you're going to have differences culturally, maybe some different political stuff around the edges, you know, different ways of being and communicating. But you know, if you meet somebody through volunteering, especially doing mutual aid, it's like we already like connect on this like really deep level beyond whatever there is superficially and needing to get to know each other. Like we have the basis for a really strong friendship, like just to begin with, because we both care.
I have some acquaintances who they've been single for a long time, and they would love to be in a relationship, and they say, yeah, you know, I'm on the apps, you know, I'm trying to get out there, I'm on the apps, like as if that's the place to date today, and I'm like, join a homeless shelter, join a food bank.
Yeah, I
mean, you will find great dates at the food bank.
Exactly. There's really, if you want to meet people that you know, whether it's dating or friendships or whatever else, like instead of looking at like, I'm 98% compatible with you, like you can really figure out if you and someone else like share like deep values by getting involved in the same sort of like mutual aid or altruism.
What's next for South Philadelphia Community Fridge?
Yeah, so right now in our 5th year, we've really been doing just a lot of maintaining, a lot of continuing to like build up our volunteers to make sure that we are in a sustainable place, because we want to be here for another 5 years. And so we're at our 7 locations right now. We're hoping maybe to add another location in South Philadelphia, but we're not pushing it. We're not rushing things. Our biggest goal right now is just to make sure that we are in a position where we can continue to do what we're doing, and that we're going to keep doing it for a long time. Because again, 5 years for a mutual aid organization, no one's getting paid to do this. We don't have institutional backing. We're not getting government grants or anything. That's a really big deal. And so where we're at now, I mean, we're celebrating that, and we're making sure that we have, you know, the resources to put in another 5, 10, whatever.
Where can folks find South Philadelphia Community Fridge and donate if they wish?
Absolutely. So we are at southphillyfridge.com. Again, that's southphillyfridge.com. We are fiscally sponsored by a 501c3. So that means we have the benefits of nonprofit status, and donations to us are tax deductible if you're donating funds. We have 7 locations in South Philadelphia, as far west as 26th and Reed, as far east as 5th and Wolf. All of our locations are on our website. You can drop off food at any time, and then you can also find more information about signing up to volunteer or transporting food, buying groceries on that website, southphillyfridge.com.
Victoria, thank you so much for hanging out today.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. This was such a joy.
Woo.